Welcome to Activity-Based Costing, Part 3. By the end of this ACLET, you should be able to use an activity-based costing system to determine the cost of a cost object. This ACLET is a continuation of Activity-Based Costing, Part 2. In the previous ACLET, we used activity-based costing to allocate indirect costs in order to determine the cost of one unit of product. We can also use ABC to allocate indirect costs to a particular customer order or a particular service. We'll still use the 5 steps for activity-based costing covered in the previous ACLETs, except our cost object this time is a specific customer order. We'll still use Company, MCO, Marshmallow Factory as our example. The year we're accounting for is still 2035, and the usual sequence of events remains the same, with one slight change. This time, customers can order marshmallows in various quantities, sizes, shapes, colors, flavors, fillings, and packaging. Our objective, our cost object, is a specific customer order. How much did customer order number 10235 cost to produce? ABC step number 1 is identify the activities performed in the organization and group activities that share a particular cost driver. Here's what we get when we break the events into activities. This is just a partial list to give you an idea. For example, event B, order and receive the materials for the customer order, involves multiple activities. We might have to prepare purchase orders to order the materials from suppliers, then receive the materials and log them into our raw materials inventory system. But even if we already have the raw materials on hand, we have to prepare materials requisition forms, then physically move the materials into the production area. And since this requires equipment, we'll have to consider depreciation on the equipment. Next, we identify the cost driver for each activity. Keep in mind that the cost driver can be identified by completing the sentence, our customer order processing costs increase when blank increases. In this case, our customer order processing cost increased when the number of customer orders increases. Our raw materials handling costs increase as the number of purchase requisitions increases. To save time, we'll enter the remaining cost drivers. You can pause the ACLET here and read through them. When we have identified the cost driver for each activity, we can group the activities into cost pools. Notice that we have 3 activities that share number of customer orders as their cost driver, so we group these into a cost pool called customer order. We happen to have 3 activities that share a number of materials requisitions as their cost driver, so they are grouped into a cost pool called materials handling, and so on. So at this point, we've completed step number 1 of the activity-based costing system. Step 2 is to estimate the cost and number of units of cost drivers for each pool. Here are the estimates based on our producing an estimated 20,000 cases of marshmallows in the coming year, 2035. For example, we estimate that the 20,000 cases will come from 550 customer orders, and the total cost of processing the orders will be $45,000. And we estimate that verifying and boxing the 550 customer orders will cost $38,000, and so on. The only estimates that change from the previous ACLET are the number of setups and the total cost of the setups. Multiple varieties of marshmallows means more machinery setups. Total estimated indirect cost is $435,000. Then we need to combine the activity costs within each pool to get the total estimated cost for each cost pool. For the customer order pool, the total estimated cost is $102,000. The total for the materials handling pool is $93,000, and so on. Again, the only change from the previous ACLET is the total for the production setup cost pool. The total cost is now $32,000 because of the increased number of setups due to the variety of flavors, colors, shapes, etc. Now we can move on to step 3, calculate the activity rate for each cost pool by taking the estimated cost and dividing by the estimated number of units of cost driver. For the customer order pool, $102,000 divided by 550 orders equals $185.45 per order, rounded. For the materials handling pool, $93,000 divided by 800 purchase requisitions equals $116.25 per requisition. Note that the activity rate for the production setup pool is now $31.37. This brings us to step number 4, allocate or apply indirect cost to cost objects by multiplying the activity rate by the actual number of units of cost driver. Remember that our cost object is a specific customer order. We want to know the cost of order number 10235. The actual units of cost drivers for order 10235 are 1 customer order, 6 materials requisitions, 3 machine setups, 22 machine hours, 8 production batches, and 25 direct labor hours. When we multiply across the rows and round the results to the nearest dollar, we get customer order cost of $185, materials handling cost of $698, and so on. The total allocated or applied indirect cost of customer order number 10235 is $3,599. Before we move on, an important note. Yes, we can use activity-based costing to allocate indirect costs after actual data is available, but we can also use activity-based costing to come up with an estimated cost for a customer order before we even accept the order. The only difference is that we use estimated numbers of units of cost drivers instead of waiting for actual numbers. The ability to estimate the cost of a customer order before we accept the order is extremely useful. Now we're ready for step 5. We can calculate the cost of a particular cost object. In this example, the cost object is customer order number 10235. You'll need some additional information. Order number 10235 was for 150 cases of marshmallows of a variety of shapes, flavors, and sizes. Direct materials cost was $670 and direct labor cost was $500. We already know that allocated indirect cost was $3,599. Add direct materials cost $670 and direct labor cost $500. The cost of order number 10235 was $4,769. Woohoo! If we want to, we can calculate the average cost per case for this order. 4,769 divided by 150 cases equals $31.79 per case on average. This concludes the ACLET Activity-Based Costing Part 3.